Screen Teamers, we're back. Thank you for joining us on KWOC and for watching on our YouTube and Facebook accounts. I'm being joined by Laura, and Laura and I, we're getting serious. We're going to be talking documentary, so don't get bored. It's going to be very educational.
Yes.
We're going to tell you about Mr. Rogers. You guys remember Mr. Rogers, right? Did you watch it when you were a kid, Laura?
I actually did. Yeah, I did.
Love that show, man.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Got me into sweaters and vests and all that kind of stuff.
Cardigans,
yes, indeed. But this is a documentary about Mr. Rogers, the man, his involvement in his TV show, and his involvement in everything he did to help kids, and not just kids, but also moving society forward a little bit, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of his ideals were, they were wholesome.
Sure.
His first and foremost, his mission for the world was to, when television came about, it told us about how he saw everything that was on TV for kids was just ludicrous.
Yeah, it was all like, hey, everybody!
Yeah, look, it's slapstick and stupid, like pie in the face and tripping and hurting each other.
Yeah.
And he said that he's like, children are more intelligent than what they're being presented.
Right.
And he said, kids can communicate if you give them a chance. And so he wanted to take what he considered just dumb, idiotic TV and turn it into something that kids could actually relate to that could help them in their life, not just entertainment value.
I love his logic in that, but I'm still surprised that his show got on the air for one, and that it became so popular, because when you write it down on a piece of paper, it's like, no thanks. This show's
if you on paper, it's boring.
Yeah.
The sets were lame. In comparison to what TV was doing, these big productions for kids. But I think that the fact that he connected with, he tried to connect with, one kid was all he cared about.
Yeah.
It was like when he was talking to one person. It was like you and him. And I remember when I was little, you almost felt like you were the only one watching the show.
Sure.
Because he was talking to you.
Yeah.
And I know one thing he said was kids don't have to they don't have to achieve anything special in life for someone to love them. And he talked about how every child was special, and it makes me think to that movie The Help. You were kind, you were smart, you were important. But that's the gist of it. He wanted kids to believe that they were wonderful and special and perfect, no matter what they looked like or where they came from or anything like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool facts in this documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? One of them was that for a big amount of his life, Mr. Rogers weighed a certain number. What was that number?
143 pounds.
And why is that significant?
What was it? I cancan't remember exactly.
I thought it had to do with love, didn't it?
Yes,
with the lettering of it?
lettering. It's the I don't want. It's not astrology, but the numerology maybe. 143. Yeah, is the number for love. And that's the whole point of all of his TV shows and messages.
He was that weight for good knows how.
For years and years, they showed that he swam at the Y every day, and every time he got out of the pool, he would get on the scales, and he weighed 143 pounds for countless years, the exact same weight.
Yeah.
I was like, wouldn't that be great?
I've got two favorite scenes, and one of them I'll talk about later on, but one of them was, I guess, in the 60s or 50s. I'm not sure where the decade was, but Congress and the federal government, they were like, you know what, PBS, we're gonna take your money away. We don't think that you're doing what you should be doing, and we think that it's just a cost that is not important.
Right.
So a lot of people came up to spread the word about PBS, and didn't really hit for people. So they bring Mr. Rogers up front, and there was this one crotchety senator who was like, oh, I'm not going to listen to you, la, la, la. And Mr. Rogers says his piece, and afterwards, it was like something out of a movie. He was like, you've got your money.
Yeah.
It was simple as that.
He he spoke the words of a song that he wrote for the kids on his show. And the way he said it and presented it, like this cranky old senator that was dead set against PBS. He thought it was a waste of time. He just, you could see his face change as Fred Rogers talked, and he just went, absolutely.
It was weird. It was like watching something out of a Hallmark movie, but it was real life.
Right.
It was so spectacular.
Yeah, I loved that too.
Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
No, I think a lot of the things that he said, a lot of people thought he was very stodgy, like, stuck up and just like a goody two shoes, basically. Yeah. But several of the people that interview on this documentary, they're not as straight laced as this guy. I mean, they're pretty out there. And I remember one of the guys that he worked with that loved him, totally loved him, said that this guy was a prankster because they were always funning and playing around on the set, and he used to take cameras wherever he found them, and he'd take a picture of his own butt, and then the people would go get their pictures developed, and they'd be going through the pictures. Oh, well, there's Jack's butt, right. And he did that to Mr. Rogers' camera, and they were like he, and nothing ever happened. He never said anything. And then one year at Christmas, they were going out. Mr. Rogers says, "Oh, did he get his present?" And he had framed that picture of his rear end for him. So he wasn't just some stodgy person that was just a stick in the mud, and that's what a lot of people believe, that that his idealism or whatever was not, it was just too, I guess, archaic, basically, is what a lot of people thought, because that was in those times, people were coming out in free spirit, and segregation was coming in about that time, and he utilized a lot of the things that happened in the 50s and 60s that were tough issues that most people would have never told their kids because it was too scary. But what he did was he added it into his show because he felt like, he said, I feel like that if you don't tell them, they're going to hear about it anyway because it's public knowledge. Right. And then something that you know and can understand because it's explained to you in a way that you can get it is way less scary than just wondering, because your imagination can be way more vivid for a child than what the reality of it is.
It's true. Did you cry at all during this?
No, but I was really tired when I watched it. So.
I did. I cried at the very end. I not boo-hoo, but I had like a tear running down my cheek. It was at the very end where they said, think about somebody who's touched your life or whatever.
Yes.
And you could see all of them thinking. I mean, it was just, and then there, you could see like the recognition in their thoughts and the reaction to that. And
right.
I was just like, and then you're thinking about people who have touched your life, and
right.
It was, that last scene is pretty good.
Yeah, it is. All in all, I mean, I'm not a huge documentary fan. I've watched several that I had to for classes and such.
Like for Screen Team, yeah.
For Screen Team, this is the first I've had to watch for Screen Team. But like Chris said, I grew up watching Mr. Rogers. Like, I watch it now and I'm like, I watched that when I was little. Because now, I guess because we're so used to the fanfare now. Yeah. The CGI and everything has to be bigger and better and more impressive. But honestly, I mean, with my kids at school, I work with preschool kids, and it doesn't have to be fancy. Like, you can literally draw a face on your hand and make your hand talk, and they'll be fascinated. So
let me ask you being a teacher to young kids, did this documentary help in any way or enlighten you in any way to move forward?
I don't know about, I think that it reminded me that kids don't have to be constantly entertained by something bigger and better every single day. Yeah. I think that a lot of parents even feel pressure if they don't have, can't buy an iPad for their kid or can't buy the latest gaming system, because that's what everybody has. But I think that kids are less and less satisfied with what they have because we always show that they have to have something bigger and better. Right. And Mr. Rogers took it back to the simple. Like, everything was simple. And kids, if they're just put in a situation where it's the simple, they get used to the simple, and they respond to that just as well because they're children. And they have imaginations that will work even better if they don't have everything laid out before them. Yeah. So,
did you hear they're making a Mr. Rogers movie?
Yes.
You know who's playing Mr. Rogers?
Tom Hanks. I'll probably watch it just for that.
Me too. But this one is called Won't You Be My Neighbor? It's a documentary about Mr. Rogers, Fred himself. Laura, thank you so much for being on the show. We've got more reviews coming your way right here on the Screen Team.